And we are live. Hey guys, this is Ruben Dua from Dubb's podcast Connection Loop. And I am on with Laxman, who is the co-founder of a company called Outplay. And I think that we have an expert on the line here because he has effectively built a technology for empowering sales development representatives, SDRs, as we might call them. Sometimes we call them CDRs. And it's all about the engagement. It's all about creating an outbound system that drives engagement and ultimately more bookings and more conversions, more revenue. So in this conversation, we're going to kind of guide you on setting up an outbound sales system. Now we're going to make this agnostic, so there's obviously a lot of technology out there that you can use, and you can kind of piece together stuff based on your budget, based on your needs. Laxman, if you could please start with a bio on yourself, and then let's get into the topic.
Sure, sure. Hey guys, my name is Laxman. You can just call me Lax. So as Ruben said, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Outplay. Uh, we're a 2-year-old company in the sales engagement space. And as I said, there are a lot of other players in the space, but we are here to make a difference in what's existing in the system. And what we ideally help the companies is to streamline their inbound and outbound strategy on how you go after once you get a lead. How will you make sure that you book a meeting and then you eventually close the lead? The whole engagement piece is what we help you with.
Mm. Okay, got it. And then, what would you say the biggest problems right now that your clients are facing? Like when it comes to outbound sales, what are the main struggles that people have? Is it setting stuff up? Is it connecting all the pipes? Is it getting people to close? What would you say those are?
Oh yeah, so there are a couple of things to it, right? So if we look at the top 2 or 3 problems, so the first one is obviously once you have a list of data in place, how will you go after your leads, right?
Mm.
So gone are those days where you set up a simple email merge or kind of a sequence and then leave it up to the system. So right now everything is human, like people wants to buy from people. And it's not just email. You have to be active on email, social like LinkedIn, and you have to be active on your phone, text messages, and video emails. It's not just the text emails, but you're like kind of giving the personalized emails using tools like Dubb, right? So it's a truly multi-channel approach is what missing on a lot of sales teams that still not have adopted that. They're still either stuck to only phone or only to email. So that's the biggest change that we see in the market right now. People are trying to move to a multi-channel approach, which will give you the better response rates. And the next thing is to really identify the right message, right? So if you have a team of 5 salespeople, obviously you always have one top rep. And how can you clone that rep? As simple as you clone your sequence. How can you
Hmm.
close that and make sure all the 4 people on your team perform like your top rep?
Mm.
And this is something to do with the data and then the technology that should help you do that. And your sales manager can't alone do this job.
Got it. Well, my question always goes back to how do we add personalization to our efforts? How do we make it so that the people on the other side really feel like we're genuinely customizing and caring for their struggle and addressing those within the body of the email, within the value proposition? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's a really important piece. Other than the multi-channel approach, the personalization is the really key, considering that everyone else is doing obviously the same similar type of outreach, right? So you really have to spend a good amount of time trying to going through the LinkedIn profile of your prospect, going through their website, their funding, whether they are hiring or not, do they got any new recognitions, right? Or did they hire a new VP of sales? You have to really go through, I mean, just spending 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes will help you find one such personalization. And all you have to do is, even our sales reps do the stuff. If you spend 2 to 5 minutes on LinkedIn profile, you should be able to find at least 2, 3 different elements to personalize, which you can personalize not just in your first email, but you can use it across your sequence, right? And adding to video, voicemails, phone calls, and all that obviously makes a lot of difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that is so important what you just said is doing the research, taking the time, taking the 5 minutes to actually do the research to understand what that person is about, to understand their title, their position, their backstory, things that they've accomplished, so that our messaging can really speak to them. One of the things that we always recommend that people do is to do a screen video of someone's website or someone's LinkedIn profile and include that in your message, because if someone sees a thumbnail of their LinkedIn profile or of their website for a video, like an animated GIF, they're gonna click on it out of curiosity, and that's where you can compel them and show them that you're thinking about them.
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot of things on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn has become like you can do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn when it comes to personalizations. And the least, if you don't find anything, you can scroll till to the top. I mean, till to the end of the screen, and then you can find the recommendation section.
Hmm.
Right. So if you're reaching out to VP sales who got recommendation from a CEO of a company he worked for like 5 years ago or something, it's a good thing for them to take them back to the all the way along to the 5 years and see, hey, this is what your CEO said. I'm really impressed with the numbers that you have achieved at XYZ organization. Right. So that has worked a lot for us.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think about conversion rates on generic emails versus personalized emails, and according to my data, I see at least a 10 to 20x increase if there is personalization. If you actually take the
But yeah.
time to communicate with someone instead of sending a generic message. The irony with this is that if you think about the numbers, if you send an email out to 1,000 people, that's generic, you might be lucky to get a 1% click through rate. You might be lucky to do
Yep.
that if these are just extremely cold emails. Whereas if you send 100 emails, you might expect to get a 10% conversion rate or a response rate at least. 10% over 1%. But all that's required is to put the personalization in and to put the research in. So it's very easy to burn through emails if you're just emailing people. It's very easy. And most importantly, you damage the brand, you damage your goodwill,
Exactly.
you know? And that's something that
Exactly.
I'd like to hear from you about of what are the risks of being lazy within outbound sales?
Yeah, that's a good example, as you said, right? Either you're burning through the leads or you're working on quality versus quantity. Obviously, you're obviously ruining your domain, your credibility, your brand. You're just spamming people, right? So that's. I mean, there are teams who still wants to do it based on the kind of your annual contract values, the amount of leads that you have. It still might make sense for few companies, but not definitely in this age of sales and B2B space and all that stuff. You definitely don't want to go after that many leads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of our inboxes are absolutely full. Okay. We are, since I've been on in this conversation with you, I've probably received, 4 emails and three of which are for sales offers. Okay. So I don't know what I did in my past life to get my email out there on the internet and to get populate some something, but whatever the case may be, a lot of those emails, the vast majority of those emails, they go ignored on my part.
Yep.
Now, it's not because I'm mean, it's not because I don't care about people. It's just that it's just noise for me. It's hard for me to even, connect the dots on those. Whereas every once in a while, I'll get an email from someone and they'll have a simple question. They'll just ask me something, or they'll make a recommendation, or they'll just provide value without offering anything, selling anything. It's saying, hey, just so XYZ video on your YouTube channel was really great. Have you considered doing this? Or feedback on a podcast.
Hmm.
Those people, I'll always respond to them because they're just reaching out. And I think that that initial touch point is where a lot of relationships can begin because it's non-threatening and it's non-salesy. I think about the goal of a salesperson. It really varies. For an appointment setter, it's to get bookings. For the person that is in charge of closing a deal, it's revenue. Now, if salespeople, we as salespeople, if we're just focused on what our goal is to just to get that meeting, is to get that sale, it disallows us from creating that relationship with the person, for actually opening up a healthy, organic, authentic connection with someone. And it's simply because we want to accomplish our goals. So how can we take a step back from the immediate goal, knowing that it's people that we're selling to, which is exactly what you say on your LinkedIn profile. It's people that we buy from and people that we sell to. How can we make this whole process more human?
Yeah, so it still makes sense. You don't really have to go through the long process. It's a long process, obviously, if you're just adding value all the time and then bringing in the sales thing, right? It it really up to what's your targets are, like what's your ACVs are, how big is your team, how small is the team, and all that stuff. But still, people do appreciate if you use that five-liner, three lines about them, and probably ask one question at the end. Hey, do you use any sequencing tool for your sales, or do you at least do outbound at all, right? So if you make majority of the content about them and add one question at the end, which would lead to the discussion, people still appreciate that, right?
Hmm.
The other way around, if you're going after a really big accounts, probably you have the time and energy to make everything about them in the initial conversations and slowly get into what you want to know from them, like questions about sales tools or anything.
Hmm. So I think that's pretty groundbreaking, because most of the emails that I get are 3 to 17 lines
Hmm.
about the vendor and what they
Yeah.
are doing, and it's not about me. And I don't want to sound egocentric or like I just want to toot my own horn, just learn stuff about me. But what I do want to do is to know that a person actually genuinely understands, has taken the time to understand who I am and maybe some of the problems that I'm trying to solve. So I really like your format. 3 to 4 lines. This is short. This is a 4 to 5 sentence email. 3 to 4 lines about them and one question at the end. Now, talk to me about what those 3 lines about them could be. You mentioned a couple of things, maybe stuff that you pull as recommendations from their LinkedIn. Give us some more ideas there.
Yeah, so if you look at your whole sales process or the sequence,
Right,
your first two touches always should be more about them. And maybe let's say you're going after email and a LinkedIn touch point as a step two, right?
right.
So your email should be literally, they should be able to just read it on your iPhone screen, right?
Hmm.
And it should be that short. And when you talk about what to include in that personalization, you can always look at their LinkedIn profiles. Someone might be having a funny description on their LinkedIn, right? So someone say that I'm a Batman of sales or something else, right? So which gives you a sense that what kind of movies they like. And if they talk about a game, you know what they like about, or some kind of an achievements that they did, maybe probably they are part of a presidential club or they have overshot their quotas in the last one quarter, right? So anything that brings joy to them or anything that reminds them some good stuff in their life, these are all your options. And unless your prospect is not really active on LinkedIn, you should be able to find at least two or three elements of that personalization.
Hmm.
And you, out of two and three, pick the best one and put it in your step one.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now, what about the question at the end? What are the questions? How do we address? How do we be empathetic? How do we show compassion, show understanding, show that we understand a potential pain point, and then also preface some sort of a solution that we can offer?
Exactly. So that's a little tricky part. And if you can combine or if you can make if you can make it that your personalization and your question are relevant, then the chances are high that you get a response and you don't still sound like salesy even
Hmm.
with one question. For example, that this guy had so much of a response rate on an email. So I just gave a demo where this guy's profile says that he has got 21% of conversions on the partnership channel, outbound sales, for example. That's very specific. He's working on bringing partnerships to the company and he got 21% response. So you can simply ask a question, hey, were you doing multi-channel or how did you get the 21%? This is insane in a partnerships in general. or you can talk about the sales cycle or anything, right? You don't exactly ask them a question which is like exactly this is the pain point that we solve with our tool, but ask them something relevant which still makes sense to the personalization, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's the best option, and we do it all the time, and people appreciate that.
Yeah. Now let's talk about subject lines a little bit. I woke up in the middle of the night last night with a subject line idea. And I can't remember what it was, but I have to tell you that when I woke up, I thought it was the best subject line ever written. I just have to remember what it was. So I think about subject lines a lot. We A/B test these like crazy. Sometimes we put emojis. Sometimes we put the word video. Sometimes we put the person's name, first name. Sometimes we make them short. Sometimes we make them long. What is your take? Give us your best advice on subject lines.
We did a lot of tests on the subject line, and even with the millions of emails that we send with the customers. And one thing that personal to me or my team, we always try to put the first name of the person in the email,
Mm-hmm.
which is like very personalized, and maybe not many people do that. And even if many people do that, what comes after the first name, right? So after the first name, we don't try to talk about either our company solution or their company or their solution. We always talk about something about them, right?
Mm.
So if you put about some kind of a game or a movie, my subject line would be something similar or relevant to that particular context, right? And then my personalization would carry forward that conversation for
Mm.
the first two, three lines. And then the question, if it is relevant or
Wait,
even if it is not
sorry to
relevant.
cut you off. I want to understand what you just said. That was really interesting. So you said something about a movie. Can you explain that again?
Yeah, so whatever the personalization that I would find, right? So
Uh-huh.
if I find two, three elements on your LinkedIn or your company or your Twitter, whatever it is, and I would try to use that as a personalization in the subject
Ah,
as well.
got it. So an interest, a hobby, something like this.
Exactly,
Got
exactly.
it.
So those are the things will differentiate from all the sales emails
Got
subjects
it.
that you see, and that gets the open rates.
Got it. Okay, that makes total sense. Adding now that is a level of personalization that I think more people need to do is to put the subject line hyper personalized for them.
Yep,
Um,
exactly. Your subject
understanding
line is the entry point. Yeah.
subject line is the entry point. So in email marketing and outbound, there's a couple of goals, right? I think about outbound efforts as micro funnels. Every single channel, every single aspect of the effort is an opportunity, is a micro campaign. So the first time is the email that gets sent out. Your first goal is to get them to read the subject line. Then
Yep.
once they read the subject line, then the choose your own adventure game starts. The next thing is for them to open the email. And then
Yep.
once they've read the body of the email and they feel compelled or inspired, we shameless plug, we are Dubb, we are a video communication platform. People send video emails all the time. So we always recommend that because it boosts lift. But the next step is to get them to click on the email. All right, there's a
Yep.
landing page, there's a booking link, there's something that they need to click on, maybe a video that they can watch. That's the next campaign. Get them to click on that link. And then they go to
Yep.
a landing page or a video page. And now the next thing is for them to consume the content on that page, watch the video, go through it. And then the next thing for them to do is to respond to the email or to fill out a form, do some sort of an engagement. I have learned what's really worked for me is that when I look at every single one of those steps within the funnel individually, I lift the campaigns dramatically because I'm just more mindful and I'm not thinking about the final outcome. I'm thinking about each individual outcome that drives to a larger outcome. What's your
Exactly.
what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's a good format you said, right? And remember, most of the email clients, it's not just the subject, but your prospect can read the first line of your body as well, right?
Hmm.
And once you see the subject, the first line of the body combined together, they'll make a decision whether to open your email or not.
Mm.
And then your first aim is to get them to read that first line, and that first line should make them read the second line, and then comes your landing pages or videos. But generally what we do and we suggest our customers or anyone that asks for the advice is we have to make it very as frictionless as possible in your initial conversations,
Mm.
be it email or LinkedIn connections. Don't expect people to click on a link and watch some kind of a page or a video or something, because it's just the starting point of your conversations, right? And they don't even know what kind of link it is, right? But obviously, once you have that initial conversation, and if you can kind of send an embedded video with your face and saying hi, or holding up some kind of a badge or something, it makes sense for them to watch now, because now they know that you've spent enough time to learn about them, their problems, or their achievements, and all that. It makes sense for them to now go a little bit extra mile and then probably watch the video that you've sent.
Mm. Yeah. And do you have a subject line? I'm always curious to ask stuff like this. You have access to a tremendous amount of data. Is are there any trends that you can share with us? Things that just work whether it comes to keywords to include into subject lines, or things to include in the body of an email, so on and so forth.
Oh yeah, so subject lines, as I said, we always start either we prefix or kind of postfix the first names, and then no subject line is similar in our case. That's why we try to use personalization, because no two prospects will have the same personalization, and this will improve your open rates, your deliverability rates, your I mean, so the spam filtering and all that stuff works on that. The subject line is the really key. And when it comes to the body, you should always keep it very short. And the first time long emails to a new domain are always suspicious, right? So suspicious for both prospects, their email servers, the security lines on their email servers, and everything is difficult, right? So that's why we always keep it very short. And then the second touch point that you do should always be some kind of a non-email touch, right? So either you send them a LinkedIn message or you send them a video on LinkedIn where there are no spam filters, right? So you can
Hmm.
try all the other things on non-email, but when it comes to email, your main aim is to get delivered in the inbox first,
Hmm.
and then get the open, and then get the response maybe, right?
Yeah.
So the video is working really well for us, be it in emails or the LinkedIn messages as well. It's a big time we are investing on the video at this moment, and then phone calls, emails, and then we also use text a lot. We don't do it for outbound prospects until they become warm, but for the inbound leads, we always put uh, automated text as part of our sequence, and
And
it
why?
gives us
Mhm.
yeah, and it gives us huge amount of response rates, and we literally send payment links also in the text message, and we have closed a good handful of leads on that.
Now you mentioned that you don't use SMS for cold leads. Why is that? Just a bad response rate, or what would you say?
Yeah, so there are two reasons. One, you're not sure whether that phone number is correct or not, because all these phone numbers we get from a variety of tools, the data points, right? And no tool is accurate,
Hmm.
right? So no one gives you the accurate data. So unless you make a call, connect, or drop a voicemail, whatever it is, you are not sure whether that phone number is correct or not. And then, yeah, I mean, to me personally, or even when I'm talking to a lot of customers also, a text on outbound is little bit, it's kind of an aggressive mode
Yeah.
to do, right? So until they become warm, once they give you a response, once they show some kind of an interest in learning more about you and your solution, then they don't mind receiving a text message. You're no stranger to them now.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think that we really have to verify information. I think this is a really big part of what we do. One of the tools that we have been using lately to clear out, or I should say, to check um, the quality of emails before we do any type of email outbound, even if it's an inbound effort, we always clean our emails. We try to make sure that they're not undeliverable, that there are no bounced emails, they're on good domains. So the tool that we've been using is ClearOut.
Hmm.
And the thing about ClearOut is that I think it's clearout.io. And what's really interesting about this tool is that you can import a list of emails, and then it tells you which emails are catch-all emails, bounced emails, undeliverable, mail or daemon, so on and so forth. And that way you can just clean out your email list. Here's why that's extremely important. If Now, HubSpot has a really great feature for this. It's called exclude unengaged emails from campaign. Okay.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when they launched this feature a long time ago, I remember I had a light bulb moment and I realized that what they're doing is they're making it so that the statistics of the email campaigns are healthy, are good. Imagine if you're sending an email campaign out to 1,000 people, 300 of which are bad emails, and your
Yeah.
click rate shows up at 5%. All of a sudden, if you remove those unengaged 300 people, you can increase your click-through rate by 30%, right? And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's pretty significant. You can get your click-through rate to 6, 7, maybe even higher percentage points, right? And I think that that's really interesting. But it comes down to just doing the maintenance and cleaning your email lists and not if you send an email campaign out and then you go to your email inbox and you see undeliverable and bounced, a bunch of times, that's a terrible practice.
Yeah.
That's like weeds growing in your garden.
Sure.
What are some things that you might recommend to us to just maintain our garden, if you will?
Oh, yeah. So there are a lot of tools like ClearOut. I've never used them, but I heard of them. But obviously, there are a lot of tools which obviously connects with your CRM and cleans your data, connects with your sales engagements like Outplay and clean your data, right? Or you can, there are a lot of extensions that I've heard of where you can just connect with your Google Sheets and then clean your data there. But it's really important to clean out your emails data. And yeah, for phone numbers, unfortunately, we don't have anything
Hmm.
like that, which is kind of, I would love to use one if there is one. But yeah, unless you make a phone call and then you figure out whether it's a office line, a home line, or a voicemail and all that stuff, your inbox is full. A lot of variety of observations that we do with the cold calling, right? But since there is an option, yes, cleaning out your data, keeping your domain healthy, and keeping your metrics healthy, it's a really important point.
Nice.
And doing A/B testing is always good. I don't see a lot of sales teams still doing that. I don't know. It could be because of the laziness to write a lot of templates and all that stuff. But I would recommend all the salespeople to vigorously do A/B testing. It's like we find our sequences which starts from A, B, C, D up to M, N, O, P. Also, we have sequences.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it
is
helps you
so.
in a lot of ways. It helps you with find the right subject lines, right call to actions, and also helps you that when you're reaching out to more than 200 or 100 people every day, it's literally that you're not sending same template to all 200 people. If you have five A/B test variants, you're sending out to 5 into 20 templates, which
Mm.
also helps you with the spam filtering, the better open rates, response rates, and all that. So in all the grounds, A/B testing is a really key thing.
So important. So glad you mentioned that. Where can people find more information about Outplay, about you, LinkedIn, social handles?
Yeah, so we have a lot of information going on our LinkedIn. We are very active. We run different kinds of hashtags, like BDR experiments is one hashtag. Whatever that works for our team, we literally very transparent and put all the metrics, all the processes, how we do it, including A/B testing, the videos stuff, and we have another sequence called the wrong person sequence, and that's really working for us. But we have put everything open on LinkedIn for other people to learn.
Nice, man. And then how can people connect with you on LinkedIn?
They can just go and search for Outplay. We are a very small team. We are 15 people, and then you can just go and you will see my name on the phone. I mean the photo, but you can just search for my name, Laxman Papineni. You'll get me there.
Awesome. So I will be sharing that in the show notes. Here is the URL. Uh,
Exactly, you got it.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Stick around and I'll share some notes with you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks, Ruben. Thanks for having me on show.
Likewise.